Goeiedag, good day, fellow South Africans and citizens of the world.
I've been looking around for salvation. I've been looking around for the truth. All around me I see frustration, and I looked all over till I found you. I sit and listen to your stories, and you're telling me, please don't worry. It's a lot in this world you should know, and love in life is where you should go. If you're looking for somewhere to go, if you're looking for someone to know, if you're looking for someone to guide you, then love in life will guide you.
Goeienaand, good evening, fellow South Africans and citizens of the world, and welcome to tonight's really special live stream. We've got an amazing guest on for you. Yeah, Reyno De Beer. And wow, what a story he's got to tell. And it's so current. But before we actually get on to that, there's a little bit of admin I have to take care of. And the first one is we are selling a painting tonight. And it's a beautiful painting. Let me show you. Now, this painting is called Free. The artist is Elise Smith, and it's Marlena's cousin. Size is 50 centimeters by 50 centimeters, and or 55 centimeters and by 55 centimeters with the frame, which is included. So if you're in South Africa, you've got a framed painting, absolutely beautiful. Acrylic on board, reserve 3,000 Rand. The theme is, may your heart find the courage to be free. True freedom can be found within yourself if you allow yourself to find the cage first. May we take a look inside in this time of lockdown and find the keys we need to buy. A very, very relevant subject to tonight's speaker. Bid on this painting, simply say painting in the side chat and the rand amount you are bidding. Now remember the minimum bid is 3,000 Rand, which is a steal. And subsequent bids must be above the current bid. I also have an urgent appeal from Patrick of Farmers Aid. He says, I need to ask a huge favor if you can. Can you make an appeal for me? I had a lady in Sutherland asking me today if we have clothing for kids, women and men. There is also a little girl who's doing homeschooling and her computer is so broken they have to keep it open and have the fan blowing on it to keep it her homework. I managed to get her a computer and am donating my screen for her to use. 1,396 kilometers just to get there, and it's freezing cold as well in the plus minus there. We're doing this so we can bring winter clothing to kids and families who are at this time freezing. I would ask you to make an appeal if anyone can help us or contribute to the diesel so we can get this to the people there. Email me, that's me, Scott, if you can help. And I'll ask one of the moderators to put my email address down below. And in the title, if you can just say helping Patrick. Okay, now, let me just reduce this paintings in size and go back to my cam. There we go. Now, Please remember to subscribe to this channel to be kept informed. We have some fantastic guests on here and some really interesting up every day. Now, let me get our guest. But before I do, tonight we're meeting Reyno De Beer, who heads up the Liberty Fighters Network. Reyno has been central to taking the ANC government to court over the lockdown. In a recent statement, he said, "At the heart of that Western freedom and democracy is the belief that the individual, man, the child of God, is the touchstone of value, and all society, all groups and states exist for that person's benefit. Therefore, the enlargement of liberty for individual beings must be the supreme goal and the abiding practice of any Western society." All right, without any further ado, let me get Reyno, our guest, on. Here we go.
Yes, good evening. How are you?
Excellent, excellent, thank you. How are you?
No, fine, thank you. Thanks for inviting me to your wonderful show.
Very, very welcome. We've got about 700 people watching right now. Now, oh, there you go. Now I can see you. That's perfect. It's just coming into focus.
Perfect.
That's great. Now, Reyno, you've been in the news in the last couple of weeks in a big way. And let's cut right to the chase. Tell me a bit about yourself, growing up in South Africa.
Well, I was basically raised also in Edenvale, so in a hospital, in the Edenvale Hospital. So I'm supposed to be a Lions supporter, but I've converted to a Stormers.
Right.
So, I've had a very interesting life, but especially now, 5 years ago, we've established Liberty Fighters Network. I've always been involved in human rights activism since I was actually in matric in 1994 in Hoërskool Hendrik Verwoerd. A very interesting name for school as well under these circumstances. And now so I've always been involved in activism, but 5 years ago we've established Liberty Fighters Network, and the purpose of the organization was from the beginning to be a social justice organization, to provide legal support to those who can't afford legal representation. So that effectively got us where we are today.
Right. Okay. And so, why did you actually start the Liberty Fighters Network? Was that just any particular thing that made you get into it, or was it just something that, because of your interest in fights, that you got involved in that?
Well, the predecessor of Liberty Fighters Network was also an organization called Property Justice, which purely focused on property disputes. But what prompted us to establish Liberty Fighters Network was that we had a very interesting incident where we got hold of alleged corruption taking place in the Pretoria High Court, where two judges were implicated in this alleged scam that was going on. So we've reported the matter to the police and to the Hawks, and the National Prosecuting Authority came in between, and it was ultimately blocked, the investigations. So none other than the previous National Director of Public Prosecutions, Paul Abrams, he was the one who blocked the investigations, and the matter went to the Constitutional Court. It was squashed there, and ultimately we took the matter to the African Union for for Human and People's Rights, the Commission, African Commission for People and for Human and People's Rights, and last year that matter was indeed ceased, and the African Union is currently dealing with that matter. So Liberty Fighters Network is not just some organization that popped up now. It had a history of very good cases. So that was basically the incident that prompted the Liberty Fighters Network.
Right. Now, you obviously have a legal background because a lot of legal stuff that goes on. I have to ask you, do you want to answer that before I go on?
Yeah, well, I never had a formal legal qualification. I've studied law and never finished, and but I've taught myself over the past 26 years. I've taught myself how to get myself around in the South African legal system. So that is actually I taught myself, and that is where I've actually got my competitive advantage from, in the sense that I'm not a member of the legal profession, and I can do certain things. What the legal professionals can't do, because I'm not bound to the ethical values, if you can call it ethical values. So I know how to bypass those ethical conduct rules of them that actually basically mean nothing. And so I've actually become a nemesis for many legal practitioners in practice. So yes.
Well, I understand exactly where you're coming from, because as I'm located in Australia, I don't have to fear the South African Police Service knocking on my door like YouTubers who are based in South Africa have to. So I get what you're talking about. Now, let's get on to the meat of the subject. Who is the one to blame for the lockdown? Is it President Cyril Ramaphosa or the Minister Dlamini Zuma?
That is a very interesting question, because out of as a rule of thumb, us South Africans like to blame the more obvious one, which under these circumstances are the alleged most hated one, who is actually Minister Dlamini Zuma. But if you think about it very clearly, the cabinet has been appointed by Cyril Ramaphosa, the president. So he appointed his allies in the government, or in his cabinet. Dlamini Zuma was actually merely put in the cabinet because she was the runner-up from the 2017 ANC National Congress. So she lost, obviously, to Cyril Ramaphosa, and the National Executive Committee of the ANC basically overruled that decision that Dlamini Zuma had to be in the cabinet as well. So now the obvious thing is that people think that because Dlamini Zuma is responsible for the lockdown, or for the Disaster Management Act, as the minister overseeing that act, the cabinet can at any time overrule her as the minister. So then she's obliged to follow the path dictated by the cabinet itself. So under those circumstances, and as I'll describe later on during our interview, there are a lot of sinister things which happened from the president's side, which we are questioning. And so under these circumstances, I almost want to say that I'm very much sure that although we would like to believe that Dlamini Zuma is the guilty party in the lockdown regulation saga, I would like to opt to say that it could be most probably the president and his cabinet that's behind everything.
Ah, okay. Now, I just want to address the side chat quickly and then we'll get to the next question. Guys, please remember to subscribe to the Loving Life channel. We have some fantastic live streams and we have some very, very interesting videos going up every day. And please also remember to participate in the side chat and don't forget this painting which I've got up on the side of the screen. Beautiful painting, starting at 3,000 Rand. The money goes directly to a charity called Boere Droogte Help, and they really need every cent that they can get. Okay, now getting back to you, Reyno.
Yes.
When we talk about this court case that you took out over the lockdown, what was the reason why you decided to take the government to court?
Well, the reason was that our organization have been specializing in landlord-tenant disputes. So we ended up, during the lockdown period, receiving approximately 3,000 complaints from tenants who were in dire straits with their landlords. They were unable to pay their rentals. So the landlords went out and started with aggressively collecting the rentals in a mafia type of setup, illegally disconnecting electricity and locking out the tenants and illegally evicting them and intimidating them, etc., etc. So although many of those actions were regarded or are regarded as criminal, and the police could have been approached for criminal proceedings to be initiated against those landlords, the police didn't want to become involved. And it led to a lot of tenants literally being evicted or intimidated, and it became chaos. So we were put in a position to say that the government will fix this. They should fix it. Because they've created the lockdown regulations and they can easily rectify the current situation. We were waiting and we thought that a political party or some known organization like the Helen Suzman Foundation or whoever would have come to the rescue of all these tenants. But the assistance never arrived. So we've decided, let's do it ourselves. We've got the background of engaging in High Court applications because of the nature of what we're doing with eviction applications and everything, that we know the nitty-gritty. And I've been doing this also for roughly 26 years.
Right.
So I said, okay, let's do it ourselves and see how far we can get. So that was actually what opted us to become involved with this case specifically.
Right. Now, just before we continue, I just need to make an announcement. Marlena's just said that, now we had General Isaac van Zyl on my channel last night in a live stream. Lovely man. He's the leader of the Boere Legion. And the message is he has been admitted to a private hospital. He had another heart attack today with damage to the heart. And they're saying that Isaac is not able to get an operation until he pays at least 50% of the cost. Now, I'll give you a bit of the background to this, Reyno, and I'm not sure if you have any advice on this, but the situation is that he had heart attacks back in April, early May, and he was then scheduled to go and have a triple bypass about 10 days ago. And the hospital said, no, we can't help you. We only have one emergency bed. And not only that, but because of the lockdown, the other theatres are not operating. So he was sent home. Now, we had him on the live stream last night, he was not well. He was not feeling well. And now we hear he's had another heart attack and he's in a private hospital, but they're refusing to actually operate on the guy. What the hell is going on in South Africa?
Scott, I think what is happening is that urgently we need a new regime in this country. Clearly, what our government is trying to do is not working, and this is not working for all of our people, not only for certain people. So most of our support from Liberty Fighters Network, due to the type of work that we are actually doing, is actually from the black South Africans. So we've got much more support from previously disadvantaged communities than white or other people. And it's not that we only focus on a certain race group, but it's that the type of problems that especially the black South Africans in South Africa is actually facing, and their own government that they have elected are looking the other side. And it's up to organizations like us to actually come and pick up all the scrap and try to mend this massive problem. So all in all, I obviously think that it's not only limited to the lockdown now. This has been coming on for quite a number of years already, and we urgently need to, as South Africans, do something about this issue as a matter of urgency.
Yeah, look, the whole country is falling in a big heap. Now, let's get back to the subject, but just before I do, guys, everybody watching, we've got well over 1,000 people watching at the moment. Please pray for General Isaac van Zyl. Okay, now, let's get back to the lockdown. When it comes to the legal case, what other options did the government, when it comes to the lockdown, what other options did the government have besides using the Disaster Management Act?
That is where my money will most probably go on, or will be put on Cyril and Ramaphosa as the actual culprit beyond the lockdown. The president had the authority to evoke the International Health Regulations Act of 1974, which is specifically designed to fight diseases. He could only have, from his side, made a proclamation to incorporate the latest World Health Organization International Health Regulations of 2005, and then we would have actually used the International Health Regulations of 2005 to take us through this lockdown episode. He did not do that, although he has got the authority in his cabinet with his allies to revoke the Disaster Management Act at any stage, and he did not do that. The other option was that the cabinet could have actually said that let's go for a national state of emergency governed in terms of the Constitution.
Right.
The advantage of that was, if that would have been taken, was that the United Nations would have then appointed a committee which would have looked after the human rights abuses in South Africa specifically, and governed that and regulated that. Now, the section or Article 3 of the International Health Regulations of the WHO specifically says that these regulations will be implemented without any violation of human rights whatsoever.
Right.
So now we are sitting with two options: either the state of emergency in terms of the constitution, or the international health regulations, which could have been used instead of the Disaster Management Act. So we are questioning the cabinet at this stage to say, why have you not used that? And in terms of our court case, the Minister of Kochta, Dr. Dlamini Zuma, could not give us any answer. So she basically let it open for us to actually fit in the gaps or complete the gaps. So those were the two options that could have been utilized.
So really, the Disaster Management Act was a real overkill.
Definitely,
Okay.
because it only gives the authority to one minister to basically implement regulations which would have or which did change or violated our human rights. So it does not make sense in any way why the Disaster Management Act was actually utilized. And Section 27(1) of the Disaster Management Act says that the Disaster Management Act could only have been utilized if the national executive had no other option or have not been allocated that responsibility to use any other option, which they did. So that is the other question we obviously need an answer for.
Right. Now, I take it that was the basis of your arguments for taking them to court.
Indeed, because our first prayer was actually to declare that the declaration of a national state of disaster was unconstitutional and invalid. Unfortunately, the court, in not as many reasons given, opted that the declaration was indeed lawful and valid. But the judge also specifically said that he does not have much information about the International Health Regulations Act, and he does not know whether that would have been utilized by the cabinet instead. We actually wanted to file an application for leave to cross appeal when we've received the application for leave to appeal from the minister, on those grounds that we believe that the court erred. But after a deliberation with our legal team, we decided that it can always be handled afterwards, but let's just keep our eyes on the ball, fixing at the regulations itself first.
Right. Okay. What is your view about the declaration of a national state of disaster? I know you've talked about it, but what is your view about it? And I just need to add to this that I find it strange that Ramaphosa a couple of weeks ago, when asked a question about the economy in South Africa, said, the economy in South Africa is just hanky-dory, it's just fantastic. And then he went on to say, after the lockdown, it's going to be a perfect setup for black economic transformation. Now, that to me was a hidden signal, basically saying that we're very happy that we got this lockdown. We're very happy that hundreds of thousands of small white businesses are going bankrupt, because after the lockdown, we'll use their taxpayers' money to go and fund black economic empowerment compliant businesses to take over what they used to do. I mean, that's a message he spelled out to us through that comment. What are your thoughts on that?
I in fact, saw that clip myself, and it was also evident for me that he had ulterior motives. I always say to people that every time when we were sitting in front of the television and in front of our computers, listening to the upcoming national state address of Ramaphosa, I always said that, it sounded like me as if he was actually reading a ransom note, as if someone was standing behind him with a gun. Because in most instances, he couldn't even pronounce most of the names and the words, and he was supposed to be the author of it as the president.
Yeah.
But in any case, yes, obviously we know that presidents all over the world have got their own team writing their speeches, but at least he should have been properly prepared, reading it in front of his own nation. But in any event, when the national state of disaster was declared, something very interesting happened. That was on the 15th of March. And on that very same day, all the political parties, 14 of them in total represented in Parliament, came out with a joint press release saying that we, the 14 parties, 100% back the government for going into these measurements. At that stage, we did not even know that we are about to go into a lockdown. That was only a shutdown from the 18th of March. So we said, no, it's fine if our political parties that we have elected say that they are backing the government for this, then obviously there's some truth in what is going on, and we must just sit back and they will handle it. And very strangely, in our court case, we've asked numerous of questions and presented something like 28 annexures that we've attached to our application of factual evidence showing in the direction that the declaration of the national state of disaster was actually irrational.
Right.
The minister did not answer to any one of those annexures, meaning in terms of law, anyone who knows law will realize or will confirm that if you don't answer in your answering affidavit to any specific matter raised in the founding affidavit, it means that you actually agree to what was stated. And we find it very much odd that political parties like the DA and the Freedom Front suddenly now sits in Parliament questioning the Minister of Cogta, Dlamini Zuma. What information did she have in order to declare national state of disaster? But the logic thing is that wait a minute, but if you on the 15th of March agree to whatever the minister is going to do, giving 100% your support to her, you should have had the same information she had at that stage.
Right.
So it means that you actually came out and failed the people as well. There's some sort of sinister thing going on between the political parties and the government. And obviously, for any reasonable person, the logical explanation would be somewhere there's a possibility that these political parties got a very handsome money handshake somewhere underneath the table. That is the obvious conclusion that one can arrive at. And those things need to be examined and investigated. The other problem that we foresee with this declaration of a national state of disaster, and eventually for government to go into a lockdown, When the lockdown itself, the hard lockdown was announced, um, I immediately, when the president read his speech announcing the lockdown, I immediately realized that if the Rupert and Oppenheimer families were approached to provide funding to the Solidarity Fund, what makes them so special to have been consulted before the people of South Africa even knew that there was a lockdown? So that is something that is clearly something very suspicious for me as well. Then probably the final nail and the most important nail in this coffin is that very few people know that the World Health Organization, they use a specific coding system to report all these diseases. It's called the ICD-10 coding system. The ICD-10 coding system for COVID-19 only came into operation from the 1st of April. So that means that the only way in which all these cases could have been reported on was if COVID-19 had its own had its own ICD-10 code, but that did not happen until the 1st of April, and by then South Africa was already in hard lockdown for 3 days.
Right.
So we are saying that what figures did the minister and government took into consideration when deciding that South Africa, by the time the lockdown started, we had something like 1,000 cases of COVID-19. That was impossible. But what came out was that in the beginning, since the 11th of February, when COVID-19 was formally recognized as a new disease by the WHO, they came out and said, but for the interim, we're going to piggyback on the cases of on the J group of the ICD-10 coding system, which is for influenza and for pneumonia. So they said that J12.89 was, which is actually influenza, other virus combination, was actually used for the interim to record COVID-19 cases. But that is a code that was already in use for many years. So it implies that the cases that were actually reported on was not only for the so-called COVID-19, it was for other influenza and pneumonia cases as well. That is a very, very important matter that each and every one who's listening tonight and who feels that COVID-19 is really a death-threatening disease, go and get your facts straight. Don't rely on mainstream media. Don't rely on what the government has been lying to us all the time in order to create fear. That is all what this whole COVID-19 was all about, is to create fear amongst the people of South Africa, and they have succeeded in it. And very interestingly, last night, I received a phone call from a medical practitioner based in Sandton. I'm not going to mention his name, but he's told me, Reyno, the problem that I'm having in my community in Sandton is that my social circles in which I am moving around They truly believe that the moment when they take off their masks, they will die. That is what a medical practitioner
That's
in
crazy.
Sandton is telling me. And that is the problem that we are sitting with. When you go to a so-called township, you will see that all the people there have already got lost, removed their masks. It's as if there is no lockdown in the township areas. People have the shebeens are open.
Right.
And now you are going to the more upmarket suburbs of South Africa, and you will find that people who are highly educated, highly professional, you would expect them to be neutral when it comes to evaluating two standpoints of view and make up their own conclusion to what is right. That is not happening. That is the problem that we are sitting in South Africa, is that we, and when I say we, I'm referring to me as a white person. We have become used to thriving on fake news.
Yeah.
And we have become used to the mainstream media of everything that is in the mainstream media must be the truth, and that is our downfall. We must come out of that box. We need to accept that there is something, what is happening out there in reality is much greater than CNN and Sky News and SABC News. Definitely, we need to evaluate that.
I totally get that, and I've got to say we've got about 1,200 people watching right now. Now, in your permit, which we'll get to shortly, in the permit that you've issued, you actually talk about the political parties, and I'll read to the people listening what you actually say. You say, Liberty Fighters Network further believes that the Democratic Alliance, or DA, Freedom Front Plus, and the Economic Freedom Fighters must stop deceiving their supporters in believing that they had no hand in the unconstitutional lockdown. Now, that's actually written in your permit. As I say, we'll get to your permit in a while. I want to address something here about what is going on behind the scenes with the National Coronavirus Council. And I believe there's a power play going on. I believe you've only got 7 MPs involved, and I think that Ramaphosa is a lame duck president. I think that Ace Magashula, David Mabuza, Dlamini Zuma, and others have formed a bloc, and they're now telling Ramaphosa what to do. I think that's what's actually happening. In particular, this issue with the cigarettes, where 1 week Ramaphosa says, yeah, you can go and smoke from next week. You can go and buy cigarettes legally, and then bang, a week later, the NCC says no. I just think there was something so wrong with that. What are your views about this power play I'm suggesting is happening?
No, there's obviously a power play, or that is what we are meant or made to believe, that there's a power play. There's also the possibility that they are only playing their roles as if they believe that or that there's differences between Ramaphosa and Dlamini Zuma, but actually they are sitting around the same table. The issue about the NCCC is that it basically have been confirmed by the Western Cape Court now that it was merely an advisory council to the cabinet under these circumstances.
I don't think
so they
never
had. Obviously, we can always think the worst when it comes to our government.
Yeah.
But the fact is that it is alleged that they are only an advisory committee. But people don't understand how the cabinet actually function. The cabinet, when they make a decision, the responsible minister must enact that decision from their side. But it also goes around in the other circle that when a minister dedicated for, like Dlamini Zuma under these circumstances, make a decision which might not be the decision of the cabinet is then also obliged to follow the decision of that one minister. That is how they operate. And obviously, even if the minister Dlamini Zuma does not like what the cabinet is telling her, she is then obliged to follow what the cabinet has decided. So it goes both ways. So what I think is busy happening here is that this is a situation of a cloak and dagger. They're holding pistols against each other's heads, that whenever the cabinet makes a decision that you must implement tobacco is going to be there next week, then Dlamini Zuma, as the minister responsible, say, you know what, I'm going to be against what you are saying, although I may not do it. I'm just going for the fun. I'm going to twist it a bit, and now there's no tobacco. Unfortunately, with this FITA case, so sorry, Scott, I'm now going into the tobacco.
Yeah, can we leave that for a second, because I just want to address those watching. We've got well over 1,200 people watching right now. Guys, please, this painting is absolutely gorgeous. It's 50 centimeters by 50 centimeters. The proceeds go to charity. It's Boere Droogte Help, which helps farmers, and they're really needing funds right now. So I'm sure someone here can afford to put in a really good bid for this painting. It's beautiful, and it is framed, so it comes framed. Okay, so sorry to distract the situation there, Reyno. Let's continue. Now, before we look at things like the FITA case, do you think the judicial system in South Africa has been compromised by the ANC government? Because I look at some of these decisions and I say, what the heck was that about?
The judiciary of South Africa has indeed been compromised, whether it's by the ANC government or by another parties. I always think, being involved in the law quite a lot during my 26 years as a professional person, I regularly notice that the judiciary is a very much close-knit brotherhood. I've seen, for instance, situations where many times in my career where you can see that two attorneys on either side, they're actually colluding with one another to see how must we drive this whole case in order to reach a certain objective or a certain decision by the court, which will favor us as the legal practitioners and not necessarily the clients. So what I'm mentioning that because when you look at the FITA case, for example,
right,
and I must be careful now to. This is only an observation, and I'm not saying that this is a fact.
Right.
But when we look at where does FITA comes from, we will realize that it's actually representing tobacco manufacturers associated with Mazotti, who is the one apparently in cahoots with Dlamini Zuma and her family.
Edward Zuma.
Now, yes, and now we are saying that if FITA, what the people need to realize is very important. When we launched our application, that was formally on the that was on the 14th of May this year. The DA and the Freedom Front announced that same day that they are going to take government to court about these things. So when by the time they lodged their application, ours were already lodged. So what our legal team did was that we immediately communicated with the DA and all the cases currently there, inclusive of the FITA legal team, and we said, okay, but let's combine our efforts and take and go for the kill now. In inverted commas, obviously, otherwise they're going to say that I'm busy inspiring violence. But let's go for the kill. And we must be careful for what we say, because the moment when someone is just putting something in his nose, people think that that is automatically fake news. But in any event, so we've said, but let's combine our efforts and our resources and do this together. They turned around and they said, no, our case is not very good. They're going to pursue their own cases. So FITA went in their own direction. The DA went into their direction.
Crazy.
So we said, okay, let's carry on as Palucas and an nincompoop organization no one knows about. Let's just take this further ourselves. So what happened was that by the time our case was heard on the 28th of May, the FITA case was not even in court. They were still arguing on a date to hear the matter. But they got the comfort of having their case heard by a full court of 3 judges. And so by the time we got our ruling on the 2nd of June, unfortunately, because of the case that was already pending at that stage, I think the FITA case was only heard on the 10th of June, I'm not mistaken.
Right.
We said, the judge said, specifically Judge Norman Davis, specifically said that he is not in a position to rule on the tobacco because of the pending case of FITA. And that is why the order specifically excluded the tobacco pending the outcome of the tobacco court case. So we got what we wanted on the 2nd of June, and for some reason, we've also observed that the arguments that were raised in the FITA matter was very much strange. We would have thought that a lot of attention would have actually gone into the real needs of and the diseases of smokers not smoking and not being able to get their tobacco. But strangely, that never happened. And the judgment was, everyone said that no, it's just obvious. It must be logic that the FITA case must be in favor of FITA. And it turned out not to be. So now we are sitting, raising all these questions. What actually what went wrong in their case? And strangely, the British American tobacco, which is also on the other side of the coin, which is associated with the Rupert family,
Right.
They strangely had a situation where their case should have come before the court, I think today or tomorrow, but it was strangely postponed until August.
Yeah, I saw that.
Hence the fact, yes, but still, it's supposed to be an urgent hearing. So yes, it's very much strange what is going on with the tobacco. The obvious question is that no, this is manipulated by the Zuma faction because they are making a lot of money out of this.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I've also seen people paying ridiculous prices for Rothmans and for all the British American tobacco cartons of cigarettes too, which basically makes me think what this is both sides are actually profiting out of the misery of the smokers. And I think, and we as Liberty Fighters Network is really actively considering to rather take it out of the hands of the industry and consider whether we can't maybe take this matter of the smokers as the human beings behind it to court and get a resolution on this, probably seeing whether we can maybe intervene as a party in the FITA matter that was just dealt with last week. So we're currently looking at all our options, and hopefully, I really hope for. I'm not a smoker, but I truly hope that this issue is dealt with. I totally think that it's inhuman what is happening. The thugs are making a lot of money out of this, and it's time for the people to get guidance and take this matter forward as the people and sidetrack all the industries and the inner fighting, definitely.
Now, just keeping on that theme, the NCCC case in Cape Town, which was also dismissed last week, how does that influence your ongoing case against the minister?
It does not influence our case at all. Because number one, it was merely the order that was made was merely a dismissal of the application. And secondly, although the court made reference to the apparent validity of the lockdown regulations, which were found by a physical court order, in our case, to be invalid, it does not have any implication in the sense that by the time that conclusion was made by the court in their ruling, there were no lockdown regulations since Wednesday, the 24th of June, according to our interpretation of the law. So and even the level 3 amendments that came out now on the 25th of June, people thought that no, this is now the constitutionally aligned regulations that was mentioned in or referred to in the judgment of De Beer, but the fact is that those are amendments to the regulations that have already, according to us, lapsed on midnight the 23rd of June. So it also have absolutely no effect. We are sitting, according to us, in a legislative vacuum at this stage in relation to lockdown regulations. Besides the 6 regulations that were specifically excluded from our judgment, there are, according to us, no other lockdown regulations in place because of this technicality that's currently going on. Scott, may I quickly just describe why we say that the lockdown regulations have lapsed on midnight the 23rd of June?
Please do. Yes, please do.
Okay. The order in our matter in the Pretoria High Court was made on the 2nd of June. The court invalidated all the lockdown regulations. It's not only restricted to the level 3 and 4, like the minister or the press release by government falsely told the media in South Africa. It's all the lockdown regulations to be invalid since the 2nd of June. It was merely suspended, or the implications of the invalidity was merely suspended to give time for the government to actually come up with more constitutionally aligned new lockdown regulations.
Right.
So the 14 days, the 14 business days, if you count, and even inclusive or excluding the 16th of June, which was a national holiday in South Africa, Youth Day, you will come up that the final day, the last day, the government was supposed to file or to come up with a new set of regulations ended at midnight on the 23rd of June, on last week Tuesday. But now legal eagles say, but no, Reyno, you interpret the act wrong or the law incorrectly, because the government 5 days after the 2nd of June, so that was on the 2nd, on the 7th of June, government filed an application for leave to appeal. And in terms of Section 18.1 of the Superior Courts Act, it is considered that the execution and operation of a court order suspends or is suspended pending the outcome of the application for leave to appeal, meaning that the 14 days stopped. And we originally we said no, but this can't be. It does not make sense. I was always under the belief that the 14 days were properly calculated or was connected in from the 2nd of June. I had a lot of discussions with legal brains regarding this issue, and most of them said no, it's not. It's suspended, and if it's or if the application for leave to appeal is dismissed, it means that there are still 9 days left. So it's the 14 days minus the 5 days, there are still 9 days left for government to do something. So luckily, a legal practitioner from Pretoria contacted me a week or so ago, and he referred me to a constitutional court case that happened where he was involved in himself, where the whole matter was discussed, and the court, on various occasions during the course of that constitutional court case that went on appeal to the constitutional court case, it was confirmed that irrespective of the fact that an application for leave to appeal, in situations where the court declared a certain law as invalid and unconstitutional, that 14 days or that period given by the court is actually attached or interpreted in terms of the Constitution itself. And the Superior Courts Act is inferior to the Constitution, and that time period is in fact set by the Constitution itself, specifically Section 172(1)(b) of the B2 of the Constitution.
Right.
So, but that specific court case came to the fact that irrespective of the 14-day period or the filing of the application for leave to appeal, the 14 days kept on, and it came effective on the midnight 23rd of June. So irrespective of the fact that we are still busy and still waiting for the outcome of the judgment in the application for leave to appeal, it's already invalid. It's already not on our books by midnight the 23rd of June. We've been saying this to people from Wednesday morning very early, that go back, lockdown is over, only those 6 regulations excluded, that is casinos, clubs, initiations, suspension of evictions and tobacco, and then cross-border traveling were excluded from the judgment. So besides those 6 aspects, go back, enjoy yourself, throw off your mask if you want to, but you are entitled to go back to normal if you want to. Since then, government knew that we have been telling all the people this, but kept quiet. The logic thing is that if we are wrong and we are 100% sure that our interpretation is definitely right, government knows this. That is the reason why they are actually keeping quiet, because they want to keep on with this deceit that they are busy with. Hence the reason that they also went out and changed the lockdown regulations, made as if it's actually the constitutionally aligned regulations that came out. But it's a total deceit that is going on now. And we are saying that, people, if you are going to wait for this government to tell you that that the lockdown is over, you're going to wait forever. It's our responsibility as the people of South Africa to claim that right ourselves, and that is why we have then decided to actually mock government and create our own permit, saying that if you are a supporter of Liberty Fighters Network and you've got this permit, you just show that to the law enforcement agent and tell him or her that you believe reasonably that the lockdown is over. There's a judgment in favor stipulating that it ended on midnight the 23rd of June, and you are entitled to go on with your life. So that is actually the method of the madness behind the permit that we have issued. Right. And we are just saying that if government is treating us like children, we need to treat our government like children too. That is basically, and this is so key, that government thinks that we are supposed to follow the government, but it's actually the government who needs to follow the people. The people are governing, the people are in control, and it's up to this government to come to a position to realize that they are merely the stewards of the people of South Africa, and they need to make as what we as the voters say, and not what they want to do. And hopefully this whole lockdown crisis that we are in now will pave the way for a new political regime in South Africa, where the people for the first time comes first. I'm not going to stop, or we as Liberty Fighters Network, we're not going to stop where we are now. Even we're going to continue with this lockdown battle, but the key principle here is that we need to go to the root of the problem, and that is that we have, as I've said in the beginning of this interview, that we are sitting with a totally incompetent government. Absolutely. And this government needs to change. That's that. We'll take this message to everywhere in South Africa where we can, and we've got such a vast support at this stage from all races, all religions, all genders, all 33 or so odd of them, but totally. We've got such a massive support at this stage that we were actually caught on our back feet to say that how are we going to manage all these people who are supporting us, and we need to get our structures in order. So that is obviously what we're busy with now.
Right. Well, look, I have to tell you, I think that what's happening with the NCCC is you've got culturally in the ANC a group of members of parliament who are thinking that they're the big chief sitting bull. You know what I mean? And I would add a single word to that, and that is bullshitters because they talk so much crap. And I'm excuse my language, but they do. Now, there's a very interesting little turn about this whole situation, which was pivotal to your lockdown victory. What part did Robert F. Kennedy play in the lockdown regulations victory? Tell us about that.
Oh, yeah. Our main consultant, our public relations officer, Andreas Stelzer, he's an old German journalist himself. When he read the judgment in the New Kisher case, no, it was in the Muhammad case regarding whether worshipping would have been allowed, or specifically whether it was a case that was that gone to court, taken by a Muslim resident. Who said that they are under Ramadan and they want to worship and they need to go to their mosques. But that whole case was not only for opening the lockdown for mosque. They specifically said that what's good for the goose is good for the gander. All the churches, all the synagogues and temples, all places of worship need to open. It's essential places where people need to be. So in that case, the judge, it was also a matter in the High Court in Pretoria. In that matter, Judge New Kisher, she made reference to a certain phrase that was she did not put the author of this piece in her judgment, but she referred to that piece to come from an occasion way back in 1961 that happened in America. And when Andreas went through this case and looked at the references, he found that specific piece that was there was actually from an excerpt from a speech that late Robert F. Kennedy, the brother of assassinated John F. Kennedy of America, had on the soil of South Africa at the University of Cape Town. That was called the Day of Affirmation speech, which took place on the 6th of June 1966. And coincidentally, Robert F. Kennedy himself was assassinated on 6th June 1968, exactly 2 years after that. But what that speech said was that it's our responsibility as the people to tell our government what they need to do. And if there are legislation on the books of the government that does not make constitutionally sense or is violating human rights, and we as the people need to bring that to our government and tell the government that they need to do what we are telling them to do. And coincidentally, one must really go and have a listen to this speech that Robert F. Kennedy did. There is on the Kennedy Foundation's website, there is a specific link to this 30-minute odd speech of Robert F. Kennedy. And when you listen to it, you must have tissues with you, because it's going, and especially for South Africans, when you listen to what he said, it was as if he spoke to the South African people and to the South African government now. Everything is so essential for our current circumstances, and take into consideration that speech was made in the heart of apartheid years. So that obviously made a massive stir in the National Party government at that stage, because it was totally not aligned with the policies of that stage. But Robert F. Kennedy went back to America, and he was the one who started the international pressure on the South African apartheid government at that stage, to allow the segregational system to open up. But the fact is, the moment when we started, we said that it was as if Judge Newkisher gave us breadcrumbs to follow, and we came up with this massive speech that was so essential for our people at this stage. And I've mentioned during argument, in our case, I've mentioned that speech, or the excerpt of that speech, in the argument, and that excerpt was in fact utilized by Judge Davis in the introduction of the judgment as well. So he himself found that it was essential to mention that speech as well, that it was so to the point for our current situation in South Africa.
Now, I have to say that if the white community had any idea what would have happened 25 years on in South Africa post 1992, I don't think that there would have been one yes vote for so-called Rainbow Nation. Everybody would have voted. This is certainly not what the white community bought in. But, talking about being bought, do you think that the cabinet, the ANC cabinet, has been captured? And if so, by who?
Well, the problem here, I've mentioned in the beginning that what I found very much strange is the mention of the Rupert and the Oppenheimer families at to have been included in the speech, introducing the lockdown or announcing the lockdown to the people of South Africa. Why would those two families be specifically mentioned or consulted before the people of South Africa? It's something. Nathaniel is a very well-known comedian and singer in South Africa. He once said, in terms of Afrikaans as a national or as a language, he said that Afrikaans is like a cake in the oven. At the moment when you open the oven door too many times, then the cake is bound to flop. But in these circumstances, we need to, as especially our white South Africans, we actively need to go and revisit the effects that the Rupert and the Oppenheimer had on our own freedoms in South Africa since 1994. We have been blamed so many times by people like Julius Malema and Key that we as white people are part of the white monopoly capital. Every time when I hear that word or that phrase, I want to puke. But the fact is that 90% of the whites in South Africa are normal salary earning citizens of this country. There's something like 400,000, I think it's more than 400,000 whites in South Africa today, which is reckoned as being poor in terms of the United Nations statistics or figures in terms of poverty. So it's more white people that are impoverished now, and the argument constantly against us is the fact that we are the white monopoly capital, but it's only a small percentage of super rich people like the Ruperts and the Oppenheimers. And it's time for us as whites to say that, are we going to allow those filthy rich families to hide behind us, the majority of the whites? Or is it time that we come to a point, and these are things that we need to talk about? We can't leave this in the open anymore, or underneath the table. We need to actively decide whether we are going to allow the Rupert and the Oppenheimer families to be consulted first before we, as the normal citizens, are. Um, as a matter of fact, I honestly think that there is the Sonderkommission, judicial commission going on for the state capture inquiry.
Right.
And I think under these circumstances, we need to open it up and put the Rupert Oppenheimer, Masepe, and the Cyril Ramaphosa clan in there as well. And it's time that there's a proper investigation in the effect all these people have on our economy in general. I honestly think that the very important thing is that mining in South Africa has been, from the beginning of the lockdown, regarded as an essential service. Notwithstanding that the National Institute for Communicable Diseases in South Africa has specifically stated that the mining industry is a high-risk infection sector. Now, this government is trying to tell us that the mining industry, because of the not to disturb the economy and the economic growth of South Africa, that the mining sector was included as an essential service. Yet, it's only contributing 8% to our national GDP. The only people who might have benefited from the mines to open are indeed the Oppenheimers and the Matsepis and the Cyril Ramaphosas and that clan. So where the tobacco industry might be currently seen as a industry for the Zumas, the mining industry could be also seen as an industry for the Oppenheimers and people related to them. So we definitely need to open this up and start discussing this openly between, especially it's very important for us white people. If we realize that the Ruperts and the Oppenheimer families are part and backing this lockdown, which it seems could be the case too, then it's our responsibility to come out and tell those families that, sorry, you need to face the music too, go and you need to be prosecuted as well. That's just my view at this stage.
I totally get it. Now, I just want to address the side chat. Guys, look, this painting is absolutely... Okay, I can't believe it's only got a bid of 3,000 Rand on it. For our American watchers or viewers, yeah, it's got a frame, but the frame can be taken off it. And, 3,000 Rand is about 150 US dollars. It's crazy that it's currently sitting at that price. Please, guys, get your bids in. Let's push this along, shall we? Now, I'm just going to get this back into the right place. Sorry about that, Reyno. Just trying to get some money raised for Boeredroog to help. Now, I've got a bunch of questions here, but we'll get to those in a second. I just want to get back to this involvement of the Oppenheimers and the Ruperts. Now, Michaela T. has said, Reyno mentioning the Oppenheimers, etc., with regards to the lockdown. I suspect they're the masters pulling the strings and telling the majority to go against us when they're the enemy. Now, I need to add to that. I found it very interesting that the ANC said they were going to give the taxi industry over R1 billion, because of disruption they've had during the lockdown. And one of the major companies which is in the taxi industry happens to be Johann Rupert. And of course he's BEE compliant because he's got some ANC cadre member there who's got a lot of shares, and that makes him compliant. So, there's a very strange overlap here between... Not hear me?
Hello?
Yeah, I'm talking. Can you not hear me? Can everybody else hear me okay? Let me just get Reyno back again. Sorry guys, we seem to have a little audio issue there. That's much better. 10,000 Rand, fantastic. That's getting closer to the mark, guys. You just try again, he might just be reconnecting. Okay, let me just address the side chat while we're just getting Reyno back. Now, I've been so busy concentrating on what we've been talking about, I haven't actually seen much, except I have got a few questions here for him. I think we've covered most of the subject tonight. There are a couple of things I still want to talk to him about, but I'm getting a reject at the moment, so I'll just keep on trying to get Reyno back again. He might be rebooting his computer. So, our bid for now for the painting is 10,000 Rand, I believe. That's fantastic, guys. Look, beautiful painting, absolutely beautiful, and it's framed. So if you're in South Africa, you don't have to do anything but hang it on the wall. And it's 50 centimeters by 50 centimeters. Of course, it's been painted by Marlena's cousin. So what a talented little lady she is. Okay. Dani is the one with the 10,000 Rand bid. Good man. Now, Dani, you'll have to send me an email just to confirm your bid. So that if the moderators can just put my email address in there, and Dani, if you can just send me an email so we can just confirm that after the show. Ah, he's back on. Okay, so let me just try again. Here we go. Hi, Reyno, can you hear me?
Yeah, I think government doesn't want us to speak, and
they heard we were saying things about the NCC, I think. Okay, guys, we're battling the internet at the moment. Yeah, look, we lost a bit of that because of the connection, but it's all good. I can hear you now. Okay. Now, what I wanted to ask you was, what is Johann Rupert and Nikki Oppenheimer's agenda after the lockdown? And I mentioned the situation with the taxi industry, where over R1 billion is being paid to the taxi industry when Rupert has a huge share in the taxi industry, which is BEE compliant because one of the ANC cadres happens to be the major shareholder. Now, what are your thoughts about what is going on behind the scenes there, and the Oppenheimers and the Ruperts post-lockdown?
Well, at the end of the day, when there's literally billions of rands out there and being played with, there's obviously thoughts of trying to take over something. What I have experienced personally in my own industry and with what Liberty Fighters Network has been doing is that now we are sitting in a position whereby the average South African only saves less than 1 month's salary. So it means that having a lockdown of 3 months, the savings of the most of South Africans have been depleted.
Absolutely.
When you go into the housing market and in bonds specifically, you will realize now that many of these homeowners, and most of them are white people, have defaulted now on their home loans. So at some stage, the banks will want to have their monies, and if these people are not properly represented by proper legal counsel, they're going to lose their homes. And I foresee that it's going to happen in their thousands. They've already started with the processes as we speak.
And the farmers as well.
But before the end, oh, and absolutely. And people and businesses are going out of business. So, we are sitting here with a massive problem that we are going to face if we think this lockdown is bad. The worst is yet to come in the form that I foresee that many people are going to lose their homes, they're going to be evicted, they're going to be in the street, and all who are going to benefit from this is the banking industry. And obviously also, once again, my favorite, the legal profession as well. Because they are going to do all these applications and foreclosures and everything, and they are going to benefit from it, and not the man on the street. The absolute frustration for me is that the that is going to come out of these regions and all these court cases is not going to go to the people actually, according to the government, needed, or those on grassroots level or the obviously disadvantaged people. It's going to go to the banks and to the rich people.
Right.
So it's a total misconception. The moment when I see our friend Julian Lema on the TV, and with his very nice way of speaking, he's trying to convince their followers that the lockdown is to the benefit of the people in order to put the white people out of business.
Yeah.
So what? It's yes, white people will be going out of business. They have already gone out of business. But the people who are suffering the most are the people, the very poor people in the areas who need the money the most. They are the ones who are busy dying out because of malnutrition. They are the ones who are being evicted and losing their shelter over their heads at this stage. So I can't see how anyone is going to fall for a scheme which is currently pushed by organizations like the EFF at this stage.
I have to tell you that we always talk about the L factor on the Loving Life channel, the L factor being the logic factor. It's completely missing in action with the ANC and the EFF. But made a little note. I can't even read my own writing. Yeah. Oh yeah. Talking about all these little white businesses that are going bankrupt. What is not being said out there is that the average small white South African business employs probably between 5 to 10 black staff. Now, they are supporting on average about 5 family members or related people. So that's 50 people for every white business that goes out of business. It is just absolutely extraordinary that this does not matter. This is collateral damage to the ANC, this corrupt ANC government. Now, just going forward, Reyno, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you about this permit that you've issued, and then after that we'll close off my questions talking about COVID-19 and whether it's been tampered with and so on. And then we're going to go to questions from the side chat. So if people in the side chat have questions, please just forward, and I will put them to Reyno. Okay, so the question I have for you right now is, you recently issued a permit which authorizes people to ignore the lockdown. Please tell us about that, and what happens if the police stop them and they've got this permit?
Yeah. What we are saying is that we need to stand up and claim our rights. If we are sitting and hope that everything will sort out itself, we're going to die from old age, and it will never happen. So it's up to us to do something about this, and the only way in which we can do this is by combining as a nation our strength to resist what government is currently doing. If we have the law on our side to say that we've got a court order which stipulates that by midnight on the 23rd of June, the lockdown is over, we have got the law on our side to protect us, that if we defy any law or any regulation of these lockdown regulations, for which we are going to probably be prosecuted, we need to stand up and say that we are not going to adhere to it. If we are approached by a law enforcement agent, a police officer, to say that you may not open your dance studio, for example, which is not allowed to be opened now, for example, or as yet, you may not open, you're going to be fined, a spot fine, that, or you're going to be arrested. Then we want the people to present that so-called permit that we've created. We call it the People's Permit, to say that you have put your invalid regulations in front of me. I'm telling you with this letter that you
Sorry guys, we got a bit of a bad connection here.
Is valid.
Reyno, we've lost the last 20
It's going
seconds.
to be illegal.
We lost the last 20 seconds. Can you repeat what you said from about half a minute ago?
Okay. I said that whenever you are pulled over by a law saying that you have transgressed, you're not allowed, for example, to open your business now in terms of the new set, and confused at this stage because those lockdown regulations have been amended every second day. I think there's a bug.
Sorry guys. I love the internet sometimes. Reyno, can I suggest we just turn your camera
yes.
off? You just turn your camera off and we
yes.
just have the audio, because that might lose. There we. Okay.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I think that is going to be much better. Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah. Now, can you go back to where you said if someone approaches you when you got the permit, what do you say?
Okay. The moment when you've got this permit, which we call the People's Permit, with you, you basically inform the policeman. Let's assume that it's a police officer. It can be other law enforcement officer, a traffic cop, a soldier, whoever the case may be. But let's just say police officer. When a police officer confronts you about any one of these lockdown regulations which have now been declared as invalid and unconstitutional and try to enforce that against you. Then you simply produce this permit that we've created to say that you are a supporter of Liberty Fighters Network interpretation of what that judgment says, and in accordance with that judgment, it has specified that there is no lockdown regulation since midnight, the 23rd of June, and whatever you are going to do will be illegal. And obviously, we can be taking, we can take action against you if you unlawfully try to enforce that on us. So we hope, and this is very uncharted territory. Are you still there, Scott?
Yeah, I'm here. Yep.
Okay. This is obviously uncharted territory for everyone. What the intention is that the government must realize that they may not illegally and unlawfully arrest someone, and especially if they have a piece of paper saying that there's a court order saying that this is invalid. So they've got an option. They either can say that I don't care what the court order is saying, I'm going to follow what the government is telling me and I'm going to arrest you. Then what we're saying is that if that happens, then we will, from the side of Liberty Fighters Network, consider it as a political retaliation against us as a liberation movement, and any person who showed that document to the police and have been arrested and are currently in prison, we as the organization will go out and interpret that or consider that such a person to be a political prisoner, and we will then go and inform all the international structures, the United Nations, African Union, BRICS, SADC, United States of America, etc., that we have got political prisoners now. They have been illegally imprisoned because of their belief, and then we will also say, just to push the last needle in the flesh of the government, we will say that our members or our supporters must just go to the nearest, especially obviously those in Pretoria and in Cape Town, must just go to your near or to international embassies and consulates, and go there and find refuge. And tell those countries that you are political refugees. So we want then to smother this government with international attention in the way that they have been disobeying us as human beings of this country. So what that is obviously a way of protest as well. And surely this government doesn't want international attention, especially that it wants 500 billion rand for COVID-19 relief from international sources. And in accordance with those structures, the moment when you don't have a very nice human rights history, people will think, or those countries or institutions will think twice in giving support to such a government. Right. That is the intention of it. Yes.
Right. Now I've just got to add that you mentioned the 500 billion rand rescue package that the ANC government got. 200 billion rand, or 40% of that, was given directly to the banks to underwrite their loans. That to me is just absolutely ridiculous. But anyway, that's my. Now, let's get on to COVID-19. But before we do, Dee has asked, can we get a copy of that court order and share it? Can Reyno help with it? Now, Reyno, if you send me that document in a PDF form, I will attach it underneath this video in the description, so anybody can actually go and have a look at the court order. Are you able to do that?
Yeah, no, I can definitely. Meanwhile, they can just go to our website, which is
libertyfighters.co.za.
Yes, and on the homepage, there's a specific clear button that people can press and just quickly go and download that. Yes.
Okay, that's the way to do it, guys. Just go to libertyfighters.co.za. I've actually got them linked in the description below this video, so you can actually just click on that link and download the document there. All right, yes. Now let's move on to COVID-19, and then we'll pose the questions that people have side chat. First question: do you think that the COVID-19 cases are being tampered with?
Definitely. I've mentioned in the beginning as well that there is clearly an undisputed problem with the COVID-19 ICD-10 coding, which only came into operation on the 1st of April. We are physically questioning how could they have come to those statistics and to those figures if they have not had a separate COVID-19 coding to capture it. Then the other issue is, very interestingly, it was brought to our attention, and from middle, when these cases started, and these are in accordance with the NICD published statistics on the National Institute for Communicable Diseases of South Africa's website itself. When you go to COVID-19 statistics, you will have many of these Excel spreadsheets that you can download and everything. And very interestingly is that these figures of these cases jumped a lot in the beginning. It was never constant. It was high and then low, high and then low. And that was the process until roughly the middle of May. And since the middle of May, something strange happened. That those statistics, those cases have been constantly increased on a daily basis by 0.1%. And even these cases comes to a point whereby people need to COVID-19 is a very, very intelligent disease as well, because when it comes to Sundays, there's no COVID-19 cases. So that implies that this person who is typing in these figures and these cases constantly at a 0.1 increase every day does not work on a Sunday. That is the obvious conclusion that one can make. And then you also have these strange ways in which the WHO told their member countries how to register COVID-19 mortalities, and it's very evident that anything that you can have a heart disease for the past 50 years, but if you had and I physically saw these certificates myself. This person had something like 15 years chronic pneumonia and bronchitis, and he was diagnosed apparently for 2 days for COVID-19, and the main cause of death was COVID-19, and not the 15 years of pneumonia and bronchitis. So I've also seen cases where people reported this to me, that their mother were diagnosed or had terrible coughing August last year, and now suddenly 3 weeks ago or so, or a month ago, She passed away in hospital, and then she was diagnosed suddenly with COVID-19. But she had this cough that caused this whole whole episode since August. And according to the WHO, there was no COVID-19 in August last year. That brings us to the point whereby we are saying, and I've argued this in court, that anyone who knows how a virus works and how a virus is found or discovered will realize that a virus can be with us for many years, or even hundreds or thousands of years, but it only gets discovered the moment when someone discovers it. And it could be that this cluster, if it really exists, that I need to add, if this disease really exists, and it's not merely a scam that is going around. It was discovered for the first time in a cluster in Wuhan. Now, if the WHO and the sorry, I forgot the center. There's a specific
Reyno?
center. Yes.
I need to go to the little boys' room pretty quickly, so keep on talking. Okay, I'll be back in a couple of minutes. Okay.
What happened was that this organization in the world, which is actually naming viruses, they named this virus SARS-CoV-2 virus on the 11th of February this year, which is a newly discovered virus. And then the disease which is caused by this virus has been named COVID-19 by the World Health Organization, also on the 11th of February. So what we've done was that we have argued physically in court that we are not busy with a rate of infection, but we are actually dealing here with a rate of detection, that this disease or this virus could have been with us and incorporated within previous years' statistics already, and it has only now been identified in a cluster in Wuhan recently. Hence the reason why there are so many cases, and the more tests are done, the more cases are coming forward, meaning that this is a rate of detection that we are busy with. Because if the lockdown is seriously aimed to reduce the so-called infection rate, it would have then basically reduced the so-called spread of it, and resultantly the cases should have actually dropped and not increased, as is currently the case. So this is obvious that due to the fact that the cases are increasing, means that whether we are in a lockdown or not, it's already with us. Whether you're going to test someone in the Kalahari, or whether you're going to test someone in the middle of Johannesburg, you will find cases there. It's just obvious that it's all around us already. And then there are obviously the question of the testing kits. If you have a president of African state called Tanzania, to say that even a goat and a pawpaw can have COVID-19, and he's a medical practitioner himself, then you start wondering what is going on here. So yeah, there's so many questions about the facts, and as I've said, it's just mind-boggling how intelligent people out there are really believing that if they take off their masks, they're going to drop dead.
Yeah.
This is totally, I don't have words for that sanity at all. Definitely not.
Okay. Now, I've got a bunch of questions here for you from people in the side chat, and I'm going to start presenting those to you. Our current top bidder for the painting is Dani, so I'm going to put his question to you first, as he's obviously someone who's really helped Boere Droogte help. And Dani's question is, have LFN looked into state-run orphanages, and how can one get involved in exposing the state?
I must be honest with you that we have not looked into that. But we surely, the moment our focus obviously at this stage is only now on getting this lockdown done and dusted behind us. But surely, when it comes to social welfare in general, there are so many corruption going on, and what I've seen from old age homes going on now as well. That the old people are not even allowed to have visitors. What I can't believe how a government, knowing that there's such an important connection between old people and their families, and they need interaction, how it can just be deprived of them. I honestly don't know. And this is the same with the orphanages, obviously, where we obviously need to have a look at the general social welfare system of South Africa. It's not working. And then come to the social welfare. There's such a lot of corruption going on with pensions, and also now this new effort of the government trying to get automatic insurance and funeral policies and stuff like that for pensioners. Those are surely things that we need to look at, and who's going to get the benefits of that at the end of the day. That's very important.
Okay, just addressing the side chat, guys. We'll be wrapping up in probably about 20 minutes. We've still got a bunch of questions to go. Please remember to subscribe to the Loving Life channel. We have some fabulous live streams here, and obviously a lot of other videos too. And there's a Loving Life 2020 channel. If you go to my homepage, look at the main picture at the top, you'll see right at the bottom right hand side a link to Loving Life 20. Loving Life 2020. On that, go to the other Loving Life channel and subscribe there as well. They're both very, very big channels. Get a lot of support. Okay, let's get back to Renelle Griffiths' question. She says, please, who funds the Liberty Fighters Network movement?
I've had that question many times, because people obviously think that we definitely backed by some sort of billionaire or whoever. But Liberty Fighters Network, since we've started, we are totally 100% self-funded. We have this policy that we don't charge any monies for what we do. We only rely on voluntary donations. And that has turned out to be very effective, in the sense that the moment when people know that they can't afford any fixed fee now, but the moment when they see that they do get assistance from our organization in helping them with their specific problem, then they do give us voluntary donations in appreciation for what we're doing. So it actually goes both ways. It helps us to not be greedy. It's so important that the moment when you work for the people, that you cannot be put in a position whereby you force people to make payments to you who are actually in need. then that service that is desperately needed by the people on the grassroots level who really need it will not go to the people who need it, and that is why we need to have this structure of self-funding. And the moment when a big company or big investor is going to say, here is X amount of big money for you, we will firstly say thank you, but we will mention your name, so that from the start we will know that, or everyone will know that we are totally transparent in that regard.
Right. Okay. Now, Michaela T has asked, Reyno mentioning the Oppenheimers, etc., with regards to lockdown. I suspect they're the masters pulling the strings and telling the majority to go against us. Where's the enemy then? What are your views on that?
Scott, can you please just repeat that? I've lost you. Yes?
Okay, so Michaela's asked, Reyno mentioning the Oppenheimers, etc., with regards to the lockdown. He goes on to say, I suspect they're the masters pulling the strings and telling the majority to go against us. When there is the enemy?
Obviously, I've been suspecting the Oppenheimers and the Ruperts doing these things for a long time as well. For the old people listening, you should also note that it's also suspected, and this is in the open out there. It's not something that I'm sucking out of my thumbnail.
Right.
That it's also reckoned that none other than late Anton Rupert himself was actually directly responsible for the assassination of Dr. Hendrik Verwoerd.
Oh no.
So he was the one who was guiding the overthrow of Hendrik Verwoerd at that stage in order to make way for John Vorster. So we are sitting with a heavily influential families behind the government, and they've been there from the apartheid government right through to the new one. And obviously, the moment when money talks, I believe that, or many people don't know further, that the negotiations towards a democratic South Africa in 1994 actually started way back in 1983. There was something like 162, 161 different meetings that were held between 1983 up to sometime 1991. And when you go to the people who attended those gatherings, you will obviously see that the names of very influential people like George Soros and the Oppenheimers and the Rothschilds and even Helen Zille and Frederik van Zyl Slabbert and all those people who are operating from the Open Society Foundation of George Soros, are they part of those negotiations? And obviously, the government that they wanted to put in had to be someone that was in their pocket. Otherwise, the change would never have happened in the way that it did. So yes, I'm surely sure of it that organizations, I believe, from what I've discovered and from my own research, it is my fair comment that I believe that Johan Rupert or the Rupert family might even be the investors behind the economic freedom fighters. So yes, they are there to disrupt. And the only way that these rich people are trying to disrupt is to get regime changes, get money. And what I've had a discussion with someone now this afternoon, saying that the Johannesburg Stock Exchange is nothing but a casino, a gambling game that is going on. Because we are always told of the losses of what is today the stock exchange lost at losses of X percentage or whatever the case may be, and then we are going into recessions and everything. But what is not told to us is in terms of accountancy principles, what is happening on the one side must be happening, or what is happening on the debit side must happen on the credit side as well. So it means that where there are losses, someone else have been benefiting from them, and then you will realize that it's the heavy billionaires behind it, the George Soroses, the Ruperts, the Oppenheimers, all those big families who are benefiting from the losses. So the more losses there are, the more profits there are for the heavy big investors at the end of the day. And what better to have a lockdown to deplete the economics of a country to benefit at the end of the day on the top side. Those are questions that might be rhetorical, but is definitely worthy for answers.
Yeah, now, Reyno, you mentioned Open Society Foundation. I'm going to give you a lead that I want you to follow up through your organization, okay? Because I think this is a constitutional question. Okay, Open Society Foundation is a major funder of an organization, a non-government organization called PLAS. That's PLAAS, which operates out of the University of the Western Cape. And
yes,
one of the key people at PLAS is a Professor Ruth Hall. It's R-U-T-H and then Hall, H-A-L-L. Now, if you just Google Ruth Hall and PLAS, you'll go straight to her profile on the PLAS page. Now, I'm going to give you some inside information here. What's happening with this expropriation without compensation is that Ruth Hall, funded by George Soros, through PLAS, is providing the ANC government with policy for expropriation without compensation. Now, that policy has been basically emailed to them, they print it out, rubber stamp it in the parliament. So you've actually got George Soros and the Open Society Foundation dictating policy in South Africa, which to me is unconstitutional. I would love you guys to look into this. I don't think they're alone. I think there are a lot of Open Society Foundation advisors, you know what I've got my little fingers going on the sides, advisors who are actually dictating policy for the ANC government. I would love you to look into that and blow this out the water.
No, definitely, and you know, while we're on that issue about the Open Society Foundation, firstly it was established by Frederik van Zyl Slabbert on instructions of George Soros, and then no one, Helen Zille is a very active, and she used to be a board member of the Open Society Foundation, and coincidentally the Brigilia Bam, who used to be the chairperson of the Independent Electoral Commission of South Africa, was also the chairperson, and her husband even. So if you have a situation also where a country like, although very suspicious, that a country like Russia would have banned the Open Society Foundation to function in their country because of manipulation of elections, you would find that what the hell is the Open Society Foundation still doing in South Africa? I think it, and when you trace, also research that we done, the Fees Must Fall campaign, we believe, was actually backed by the Open Society Foundation, in the sense that people like for instance, Judy Madonsela's daughter, herself was also on the Economic Freedom Front command that was backing this this fees must fall process, and the guy that was eventually arrested for being the so-called mastermind behind the fees must fall and the chaos that followed. He was a master's degree law student, and coincidentally, the Open Society Foundation is directly funding master's law degrees in South Africa, and then someone like Lindiwe Matsibuku, who was the chief whip of the DA at some point. She was actually sent to the Harvard University political school by none other than the Open Society Foundation. So, the DA has got a lot of skeletons in the closet when it comes to the way this country is running, and I believe still that the DA is just another brand. It's like I'm not supporting ShopRite, but I'm going to go to Checkers concept. I'm not supporting the ANC, but I'm supporting the DA. Whether you vote for the ANC or for the DA or for the EFF for that matter, doesn't matter for which one of the 14 political parties in government, you're actually voting for exactly the same one, and that is chaos. So that's what I believe.
Okay, now I'd just like to add to that. I mean, you can actually look this up, Google it on the web. Thabo Mbeki, when he was the president, most of his advisors came straight out of NGOs which were funded by Open Society Foundation, and this is not a secret. You can Google it and you'll see all the evidence. It is quite extraordinary. Okay, now
definitely.
Let's continue with the next question. Catherine Walters asks, questions: are you approaching international human rights organizations like the United Nations or Amnesty International?
Definitely. We are already in contact with some of them, and what we are focusing now on is that we just want this lockdown court case to go past. The moment, irrespective of how it comes or turns out, whether the judgment is going to be in our favor, whether leave to appeal is going to be granted or not. And I just want to tell people now already that even if the application for leave to appeal is granted, which is the more favorable decision that we believe the court could make, it basically doesn't matter, because according to us, we are already out of lockdown. So this is just a mere formality to then go to court, or hopefully to the Constitutional Court, which we will then hopefully would like this matter to take, and basically confirm everything what we've already confirmed in our case. So then we will be actively approaching organizations like, for instance, the African Union for the African Commission for People for Human and People's Rights in the Gambia, where our current or our one case is already being heard, and we believe that the South African people obviously will have a massive damages claim against the government of South Africa, and we need to still discuss that, and we are busy setting up structures to accommodate people with those claims as well. So that is definitely the time is already right, but we just want to wait for all these court cases to just finish, and then we can actively go on and start suing the hell out of this country.
Now look, it very interesting question from Estelle Truter. She says, Reyno, if you were to start a political party, I would join. And before you answer that question, seriously, Liberty Fighters Network could become the UKIP of South Africa. look what Nigel Farage achieved with Brexit. Extraordinary. Now, are
Yes.
you looking at forming a political party called Liberty Fighters Network?
I honestly don't know whether it's going to be called the Liberty Fighters Network, but going to establish a political party is now actually not negotiable, because we've been inundated with so many requests that people say that when we go into stand as a political party, we surely going to get their votes. But the problem here is, and this is a question that I've put through to our structures in the Western Cape and to KwaZulu-Natal at this stage, to say that, if we are going to go for the political party option, will we not waste our time? Because we have seen that our people tend to support. Unfortunately, we believe that many of our people are suffering from the so-called Stockholm syndrome, which means that they actually pity the oppressor. The one who has actually put them in this position deserves a second chance. And the third and the fourth and then 20th chance, or whatever the case may be. So unfortunately, our political the voters, they are still voting with the historical links. They still believe that the ANC is going to take them up to the next millennium that's still going to come in 1,000 years' time, and they will tell their children to also vote for the ANC, because that's the right thing to do, irrespective of whether this government have violated everyone's human rights. So we just want people to understand that we don't want to fall in the trap like the BLF, the Black Lives First, did. Everyone before the national elections, couple of years back, 2 years back or so, everyone thought that the BLF is going to push the EFF out of business, and they're going to have a massive vote. And unfortunately for them, and luckily for us, it turned out that they did not even make 10,000 votes for one seat. So I honestly don't want to be put in that position, and that is also why we say that if we are going to organize mass protests throughout South Africa, that is on our books at this stage, whether we're going to have mass protests. We don't want a protest, for example, to be called to the Pretoria Union buildings, and we expect that 100,000 people is going to pitch up, but then at the end, merely 100 people is going to stand there with banners. Then automatically, everything that we have done is going to be wasted. It's going to be flushed down the drain, and that is why we're saying that we need the people of South Africa to wake up. We need to realize that if we don't take our liberty for ourselves and claim it, we will never get it. This is the one chance, the one shot that the dear God is giving us now. And if we don't take this opportunity to force a regime change in this country, we will have this regime for the next 100 years in this country, and then to even think of immigrating to any other country will not even help, because we will have nothing to immigrate with. So that is the problem that we are sitting with now, and hopefully the people will start realizing that it's not about whether you've got a right to smoke. This is whether you've got a right to live, whether you've got a right to have human rights in this country, and not just only for the luxury of having a smoke at this stage. And yes, I have a lot of sympathy, obviously, for the smokers, but I think the smokers in particular were totally misdirected by priorities. They are organizing protest action to get the right for smoking, but at the end of the day, Lady Liberty is lying in the street, torn clothes, blood-stained, raped by a cabinet and the president, and left to die. And they are just sitting there with the idea that we're just going to be relaxing with a cigarette, and that is not the attitude that we want. We need to go out and tell this government that it's now the end of the line, no more. That's my view.
Okay, well, I just want to pick up on what Malcolm Forster said. He said, "This is one of the most interesting and informative chats I've ever listened to. Thanks." Well, thank you, Malcolm, and please, guys, remember to subscribe to this channel. We have live streams most nights, every night at 8 p.m. Johannesburg time, so please come and join us, and the best way to do that is to subscribe so you get alerted to when we have live streams and what's going to be on. Now, getting back to you, Reyno, you mentioned the BLF, the complete collapse of the BLF when it came to their voting support, and they were very radical. Now, I just want to make the observation that to me says that by far the majority of the black population do not want to be pulled down into the gutter by organizations like the BLF. You know, they get that these organizations are racist, they're violent, and they're not going to buy into them, which I think is a hugely good thing for the minority groups, because they can be sure, just from the voting results, that radicals like the BLF and Andile Nixitama, that little guy is about 4 foot tall, has little boy syndrome. You know, they're not going to get support from the general black population, which is great news. Okay, now let's get back to some questions here. Claudie Hart has asked, how safe are our bank accounts?
Sure. I'm of the view that with a banking sector or a banking industry, which is nothing more than a organized crime network or crime syndicate, I doubt whether anyone's of our monies will ever be safe there. And yeah, it's. I'm not someone who's going to put money in a savings account and try to save and save and save, because yes, unfortunately, we don't know what this lockdown specifically is going to still bring. I've said already that I believe that we have not even reached the point. The climax yet. I think the worst is yet to come, and I would not easily put money in my bank personally, but it's up to everyone or anyone to make up that or to make that decision himself. But I honestly will rather have a situation whereby I'm putting my money underneath my bed at this stage, my mattress, than actually putting it in the bank.
Banking system, just for people who don't know, it's very vulnerable. The money we use today is not backed by anything. In fact, it's backed by debt. It's called fiat money, which means let it be, you just create it. And there are different levels of money. The banking system is the most vulnerable. Now, Reyno's just said, I'd rather have the banknotes underneath my bed. The Reserve Bank system, which is obviously part of the real cash, is far safer than having something in the bank. Because if that bank goes belly up for some reason, you've lost everything. That's the bottom line. absolutely disgusting how the banking system works. Now, Mark said, Uncle Scott, please ask what is the likely outcome of the cigarette ban? And Anne Marie asks a similar question to Reyno. She says, please address my question to Reyno. I know you said you're looking into it, but please consider helping us with this ridiculous smoking ban. People have committed suicide over this.
That is the reality, and we will never know, or this government will never give us the statistics of the damage that the lockdown created, and irrespective of the COVID-19 cases. I doubt whether we will ever hear that. But we know that people have died of withdrawal symptoms, both for tobacco and for liquor when it was still banned. We know that people have made their own concoctions of liquor and they got alcohol poisoning. They died of that. People have taken a sanitizer, 70% ethanol sanitizer, and put it in drinks with the thought that it's the nearest to alcohol. They've died of that. So we will never know the exact figures. But when it comes to to tobacco, by now everyone should realize that there are much more behind the tobacco than just the COVID-19. Obviously, this is a battle that is going on behind the scenes. And what I've said was that we are considering as the people to rather take this matter of the tobacco to the courts instead of allowing the industry via FITA and BAT to do that for us. I think that is the people should have claimed that responsibility from the word go, and we could have just actually realized that if the industry is taking this matter to court, the court will look at it in the line that they just want to make profits, and then the court will come in, as it appears have happened now, to say that you want to make money as the industry, but actually you are killing the people who are using whatever you are producing. And that is the sort of attitude that I've got from this FITA verdict judgment. And we definitely are looking at various options, what we can do. Mass protests are obviously their way on the top to see, but as I've said that and this has already happened, that people have tried to organize very well protests for tobacco a month or whatever ago already, and basically no one pitched up, although it was advertised all over the internet and all over on social network, and people just simply they are couch politicians or couch citizens. They don't want to go out and claim our rights. And if I can have a bill that I can give to any one of you who are unfortunately one of those who are scared of getting involved, which I believe is a terrible disease itself. We unfortunately going to go nowhere. So each one must make that decision tonight and say that no, we definitely, whatever you're going to organize, we will be there. We will make time. We will put in leave. We will ask our employer that all of us at work will be there. That is the only way that we're going to tell this government that that this is going to come to an end. I'd really like this tobacco thing to stop as a matter of urgency, definitely.
Right. Okay, now I've got a question here from Jill Ashkettle, and she says, I live off my small inheritance and I can't afford to lose it. Is Investec fairly secure? Now, before you answer that, Reyno, I'll just give my perspective, and I just need to say, look, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just telling you my opinion and what I do, and that is that I have just about nothing sitting in a bank account. I have cash. I keep safe, and of course I invest in physical gold and physical silver. I don't trust the banking system. That's my perspective. So I'm probably wrong, but I'm ultra conservative, and I'm very concerned about what's going to happen to the fiat money system around the world in the months to come, because clearly it's on a rocky slope, falling over a cliff, and because there's nothing backing fiat money, it's not like they can say, all right,
Yes.
we've got all this gold or this silver sitting in the bank, so here you are, we'll pay you out in something that has real value. Fiat money has no real value. That's my issue with banks. Now, over to you, Reyno. Would you like to add to that?
Well, unfortunately, as you've rightfully said, that I'm also not a financial advisor, and for that reason, it's very risky to advise anyone what to do with their monies. And to go out and say that, withdraw your money from Investec, I need to quantify and qualify that, and so the best option there obviously is for such a person to just go and get proper financial advice from a registered financial advisor. I totally agree with you, Scott, that I don't trust the banking system at all. And I think that you can actually make more money by not investing it in the bank, by starting businesses, by investing it in something feasible that you have got control over. But it's much better for such a person to just go and consult a financial advisor. It's much better.
Fantastic. Now, just letting everybody know, the current bid, I believe, is 10,000 Rand for the painting, which you can see on your screen. I'm going to close down that auction in 1 minute from now. So if you're going to put a bid in, you better be quick, because in 1 minute's time, and I've got my clock here ticking away right now, that auction is over. And at the moment, Danny has a lead bid of 10,000 Rand. So if you want to put a bid in, it's got to be over 10,000 Rand. Now, Michaela T has said, at Loving Life, would love to have Reyno back again with updates and developments. And I would love to too, Reyno. We've had a fantastically interesting discussion. Everybody's loved it. And she goes on to say, we need to keep our eyes on the ball. Now, I'm going to be wrapping up this live stream shortly. We're going for 2.5 hours, and I'm sure that it's getting quite late there in South Africa, and people need to go and get some sleep. But before we close down the live stream, Reyno, is there a message you would like to give to everybody watching? There's well over 500 people watching right now. Is there a message you'd like to give to people? And also, is there some advice you'd like to give to people about this lockdown? Anything about your organization? Just what's in your head? Just put it out there.
Definitely. There's quite a lot of things that I would like to say, but we don't have the time. The main thing, obviously, the last message is that this is such a beautiful country, and I'm born here. I don't know any other place, and it's up to me as an adult and a father and a parent as well to leave something special for my children. And they are the ones who we need to think of now. Whatever we are doing, we need to take good, advice from the previous regime's freedom fighters. They've done a very good job of getting so-called freedom, although the moment when they got in South Africa, it was a system whereby they thought that it's the land of milk and honey, and when they got here eventually as the leaders and the new regime, there was a board saying that you must just bring your own bees and cows with you, and they did not expect that to happen. And this is unfortunately what we are sitting with now. I don't think our country has much in to offer in relation to resources, mining resources. I think we have basically depleted all our resources by now, and whatever is happening is definitely at a very reduced mining rate of production. So we need to go and focus in establishing something for us to manufacture, and we need to look into the whole African continent at the end of the day. We are here and we need to make it a success together. We are Africans. We are white Africans, and the name Afrikaner means basically just in Afrikaans that I am an African. And that is where I am, and that is where I would like to be. I don't think that I will ever be able to properly live in Europe, because the Europeans never wanted to live with each other. That is why there's so many different countries there as well, and many languages. So I'll rather stay here and make something profitable of this country, and I believe that this is obviously now the right time to do it. The most important thing is that we need to take examples of a president like the Uruguay José Mujica, the so-called poorest president in the world, or used to be, when his term ended. He used to drive with his 1987 VW Beetle around to the local pubs and talk to the people without any heavy people or protective cars or anything. And the days of rich politicians and the so-called black brigades, blue light brigades in South Africa must come to an end. Anyone who's in Parliament henceforth should know that you are there to serve the people and not to make any money. And anyone who's taking that responsibility to say that we will live humbly and with the bare necessities like Jose did in Uruguay, I think that is definitely going to be a political party and a president to keep in mind, definitely. But thanks a lot, Scott. I really appreciate you inviting me and Liberty Fighters Network, and we definitely would love to come back again at some future time. Hello.
All right, guys, now what an informative evening. And I just want to say thank you so much to our guest, Reyno De Beer, who's doing fantastic work in South Africa. And yeah, we would love to have you back on our channel again with a live stream, Reyno. And what I'd ask you, well, I'll ask Malina to keep in touch with you because she's doing absolutely fabulous work. And then I need to say to Dani, congratulations, you are the winner. of that fabulous painting you can see on the screen right now. Wow, that is a beauty. Now the 10,000 Rand, I believe half of it's going to go to Boeredrug to help and the other half to Isaac van Zyl. If you can just send, well, I think you've sent me an email. I'm going to forward your email, Dani, to Marlena, who will then deal with you direct and sort all that out. And once again, thank you so much for your bid and for your donation. And yeah, you're a recipient of a beautiful painting. And talking about Marlena, wow, where would I be without Marlena? I mean, she just does absolutely fabulous work for this channel. You know, wow, she's a real rock, and a really good and close friend of mine personally. So she's a lovely lady. Now, finally, guys, I'd like you to please pray for Isaac van Zyl. This guy is not well, and he's a victim of a completely corrupted public health thanks to this rubbishy ANC. I'm hoping we can raise that 50% of the total bill. I think it's about 140,000 Rand that needs to be raised before they do the operation. So if you've got friends who got money or something like that, look, I said to Marlena just last night, I said, if we can just get that half of the money raised, this channel for the rest of this year until we raise the balance for Isaac van Zyl, we will be focusing on his particular case because he is such an important person, an important part of our community here at Loving Life, and you know, I am desperately worried about the guy. He's such a lovely guy. All right, having said that, thank you so much to the moderators who've done a fantastic job in the side chat once again. And for all of those of you who've been watching the live stream, thank you for being part of it. I've learned a lot. And once again, thank you so much, Reyno. And for everybody else who's participated in the side chat, thank you for doing that. And even if you've just watched, thank you for being part of the community. We are a community here at Loving Life. Reyno, is there anything you'd like to say in closing?
Well, just that, thank you very much for your excellent work as well, Scott. I've been watching you regularly on what you've done, and it's a great work that you're doing. Thanks a lot for that as well.
Thank you so much, Reyno. All right, everybody, please take care and be safe. I'm going to be shutting down this live stream now. We've been going for well over 2.5 hours. And as I say, I think a lot of people are going to gain a lot of information from this. Cheers, guys. Take care. Bye for now.